Welcome, you guys. Those who watch my channel know that I like to fast. Those who watch my channel know that I'm interested in things like intermittent fasting and fasting in general. And one thing that I see a lot of people not doing when they do undertake fasts or throughout the day, if they're doing things like intermittent fasting, is they exclude things like vegetable broth. Now, a lot of people who fast, especially intermittent fast throughout the day, they don't like to consume any forms of calories. But if you're new to fasting, if you're new to intermittent fasting or caloric restriction, and you're trying not to eat breakfast or lunch throughout the day, I've found that this is very, very beneficial. Alongside, teas and coffee and green juice and clean water and things of that nature. But this is vegetable broth. What I do, you guys, is because I eat a lot of veggies, usually there's some that scraps and stuff that normally would get thrown away. And I end up saving everything and I freeze it. So any scraps or any vegetables that may or may not be about to go to waste, anything that I'm not going to use, you guys, I put in freezer bags. My freezer is actually full of bags like this of vegetables. And then when I want broth, what I'll do is I'll throw it into a pot with some filtered water. I'll throw some garlic in there and some tomatoes. And you'll see at the bottom, you guys, there's a bunch of beans. And that's really the key to good tasting vegetable broth is the beans. The beans I've soaked for about 30 hours. That'll make them cook quicker. It makes them much easier to digest and healthier. What I'll do, you guys, is I'm going to cook this until the beans are soft, and then I'm going to cover it and let the hot water leach all of the minerals and everything out of the vegetables. This is just a very basic recipe. I show you guys, or I show a handful of different vegetable broth recipes on my Patreon page. If you're interested in supporting my cause, you can find a link to my page in the description box. But this is just a really basic recipe, you guys. This is just pinto beans, dried pinto beans that are organic that I've soaked for 30 hours, filtered water. I've added about 2 teaspoons of Celtic sea salt, 2 cloves of garlic, 3 tomatoes like this that I've chopped. Tomatoes, onions, garlic, and especially the beans are the key to the flavor, you guys. And then this is just for demonstrative purposes. I save vegetables. It's got a little bit of freezer burn, it looks like, in the back, but that's okay. But what I'll do is tonight I'm going to eat the beans for dinner, but I'm going to strain out all of the plant material and all the water and separate it, and then I'll drink the broth, a little bit of broth today and a little bit of broth tomorrow. Typically speaking, this amount of broth should last me about 2 to 3 days, and I am kind of approaching a fast here during winter. I'm broth, especially the hot broth, is very good for the digestive system. And it's very good for winter. So a lot of people don't like to fast during winter. And fasting naturally, you guys, depending on how you do it, lowers your body temperature. So if you are going to fast in winter or whenever, drinking hot fluids is very, very beneficial. The beneficial aspects of the broth, it's got all of the earthy flavors, and it's also got the beneficial, this is basically vegetable tea, you guys. And it just has a ton of different minerals in it. With the salt, it's got even more minerals. It's got anti-parasitic qualities from the garlic. So just a brief little tip, you guys. Save vegetables. Put them in freezer bags. What I do is I'll use these bags, and I never throw them away. Eventually I will, but I've had some of these bags for a really long time. I just empty them when I make broth and then throw them back in the freezer without anything in them. And then when I have vegetable scraps, I'll just in increments, for instance, I'm going to use the rest of these today, and there's going to be some parts like the green parts that I don't really like to eat. So I'll cut those off and just throw them in the bag. And before you know it, you've got a freezer full of vegetables. And if you're buying organic vegetables, you guys, they're not the cheapest. So get every bang for your buck. But this is just heating up right now, you guys. Fasting, a lot of people have issues with fasting because when they fast, they exclude a lot of like the savory flavors, the salty flavors, the earthy flavors. Just because you're fasting doesn't mean you can't have some vegetable broth. Just because you're fasting doesn't mean you can't have some coffee. There's so much disinformation out here about fasting. People think that if you fast, you can only have water and green juice. No. In fact, for many people, in my opinion, the broth fast is more beneficial because you start throwing green juice into someone's system who's never really acclimated their system to that. There can be a lot of gas and digestive issues. I'm not saying that green juice isn't healthy, because properly made green juice from properly grown organic greens, especially from your own garden, in my opinion, is one of the most beneficial things that you can put into your system. But a lot of people don't have the digestive fortitude to just immediately jump into an alkaline diet. This is more on the acid side of the scale. It's not as alkaline, and because the fluids are hot, you guys, and because the broth has, these different constituents in it than green tea, or than the green juice, it affects the system in a completely different way. And this stuff, you guys, can really aid in digestion. What I've noticed with the broth, especially if you consume it hot, is that it really helps move things along during a fast. And for me personally, I've done so many different fasts over the years, and you can be 5 days into a liquid only fast and you can still be having bowel movements. In fact, I've even read and heard of and communicated with people who have gone on over 60-day fasts, who even up to day 60 to day 70, they were having bowel movements. We are full of junk, ladies and gentlemen. We are full of junk. I've proven this to myself time and time again. I've done so many different experiments, fasts, different enema protocols, colon cleansing. And fasting, you guys, is one of the greatest ways to begin getting rid of the junk and the sludge from our systems. Because when you fast, you give your body a break from digestion. When you consume something, you guys, when you eat food, it takes so much digestive fortitude to begin breaking that food down and assimilating it, and then not to mention excluding it or excreting it out of the elimination channels. This is why many people, when they eat, they get tired. It's because it just takes a lot of energy. I'm not saying that eating is a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. Eating is essential. I love to eat. It's all about eating the right things that uplift your health. But the broth is one of the greatest tools that many people exclude. A lot of people don't even think about this, or a lot of people aren't even aware of this when they get into fasting. Make yourself some broth. It's a great way to use up extra veggie scraps. It's a great way to get the most bang for your buck. And many people have never really consumed vegetables like this, you guys. Many people, when they consume vegetables, they're just eating the vegetables. They're eating the beans. But when you make a broth out of this stuff, it is very nourishing, you guys. It is vegetable tea. It affects your system. It affects your digestion in a completely different way than dried herbal teas. It affects you in a completely different way than if you were to eat this stuff. So give it a try. I'm going to wrap this one up. If you're interested in supporting my cause, you guys, it's highly appreciated. There's links below. And until next time, peace be with you all.